and welcome to the Easton Film Festival Presents. I'm Lauren Swartz, your host this evening, and I'd like to thank you for welcoming us into your homes. The Easton Film Festival is a proud sponsor of this show that comes to you every week from Comcast Studios down in Easton Industrial Park. The film festival also sponsors our film series at Andrew's Bakery, which plays every other Friday night at 7 o'clock, free of charge. This year we are highlighting great American directors. The schedule has already started, and so I encourage you to either check out the schedule at the bakery that's posted, or in the Easton Journal, or on our website, eastonfilmfestival.com. We are highlighting several of America's greatest directors throughout this year. We show the films, we talk about them afterwards. You can have a wonderful pastry or a cup of soup at Julie's Bakery, and it's really a very nice evening on every other Friday night. So we encourage you to join members of the festival committee and people in your community, because it has been a really nice part of the Easton Film Festival. The third aspect of the film festival, of course, is our annual competition, which will be held in May. So you'll need to keep an eye out on our website and on the Easton Film into the Journal for our application. Things will be due in May, and our annual awards banquet will be held in June, as this will be our 4th year. It's very exciting. But the most exciting thing is that you're here with us this evening at Filmmakers of Easton. I am very proud to welcome a returning guest, but an accomplished filmmaker in town, Mary Ryan. So Mary, good evening, and thank you for coming back to visit us.
Thank you for having me.
And if you could just share with everybody at home, remind us a little bit about yourself, your background, some of your accomplishments to date. We can refresh our memories as to your visit from last time.
Okay. When I retired several years ago, I wanted to do something for the community. And I had always taken pictures wherever I traveled. So it was, when I decided that I wanted to help at Channel 9, I saw an ad that they were looking for volunteers. And so I went down, and I thought maybe I'd be stuffing envelopes. But Rob and Sousa showed me how to use a camera. Okay. And so I went out and started, playing with the camera and taking shots around town. And before I knew it, they needed help at the Historical Society. So I've been taking their annual Chowder and Chatter festival that they have every year. And when they have special guests, I also take video of that, whoever the guest is that they've chosen.
Okay.
And part of it is I love the independence of it. I love the fact that I can do that for the community, but I also can do what I choose to do.
Great.
And last year, I entered Reflections of Easton, and then this past year I entered Conversations with a Pilot. Yes. And the Conversations of a Pilot came about after I read an article about Kathy MacDonald, who is an accomplished aviator in town. And I read it in the Easton Journal, and after reading the article, I was excited about it, and I said, gee, I really have to meet her, and I'd like to videotape her. And so I got, by way of the newspaper, I got in touch with Kathy. And she was extremely enthusiastic about my idea to do a video on her. And part of it, I've always wanted to take photos from an airplane. And as it turned out, though, the camera that I used, the camera from the station, it was too large to put in, to take in the plane. Okay. So fortunately, Robin put me in touch with Paul Duddy, who is another volunteer at Channel 9. Okay. And I waited until the foliage was really ripe, and I asked Paul if he would mind taking the photos for me. I had taken some stills when I went up with Kathy, but it was Paul's videotaping was far superior, so we used that. He was really very, very helpful with this film. And Kathy, in our interview, was so excited about sharing her ideas on, where she's been, what she's done. She's entered the Air Classics race each year,
Sure.
and she's also a member of the 99s, and that is a group of 99 pilots whose first president was Amelia Earhart, and it was formed in 1929. And so Kathy is part of this group, and each year they have a race that takes them across the country. And I think it's the year 2008. I recently talked with Kathy, and I believe it's the year 2008 that they hope to bring this Air Classic race to Mansfield. And begin there.
Great.
Yeah, so that's good. So and part of her mission is to help anyone who's interested in aviation. And right now at the Attleboro Museum, there's a display of accomplished women, and among them are some artifacts that Kathy has given them, as well as this video that I had done.
Okay.
And so. And also, she's hoping that they will write into a grant the opportunity for Kathy to go to schools, show the video, and find out who's interested and just motivate them. So, it's really what started out as I was enthused. I wanted to get up in the plane. Turned out to be so much more interesting than I could have imagined. And the fact that she's excited about teaching other people, to me, I find that exciting, to share that with those who may have an inkling of an idea that they'd like to fly a plane. She's really open. She'd take anybody up.
Oh, wow. That sounds great. So you had Paul do some of the filming for you, and then
Yes.
you edited stills and film?
I know Paul did a lot of the editing as well. I did some of the editing. When it was time to enter it into the festival, I did some of the editing. And for the festival, you asked earlier, you were talking about some of the challenges. Well, for the festival, it's always 20 minutes.
Right.
Okay, so I took the chance of going over because I did not want to compromise the integrity of the film.
Sure.
And so it was received, which I was grateful for.
That's great.
So,
Well, and again, the 20 minutes, some people can tell a story in 3 minutes, and some, when it's a subject that's a broader range, it's hard. Filmmakers can't make their films in 2 hours, so when you're trying to
Right.
make us short.
yes.
But it is challenging. So, and it was mostly done in the fall.
Yes. Yes.
Which of course is the most beautiful time, I think, around here. And so then you worked at it throughout the winter time, editing the titles and all that kind of thing.
Right. I think, whenever, I'm sure it's like this for most people who are doing films, the coordinating of it is, that's challenging as well. Working with people's schedules as well as my own. And, but, most everybody was cooperative, and that helped.
Prior to walking in the doors here at Comcast Studios, you didn't have any film, video, editing experience, sound experience at all, did you?
I had none, and I still have a lot to learn.
Right.
I really have a lot to learn with
But you'll be
that,
the first
yeah.
one to say, if you sit down and spend the time, that you can actually make something that comes out beautifully professional and something that you're very proud of.
Well, it's the effort. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's interesting to me, I
Right.
couldn't do it if I wasn't interested in it. And the first thing Kathy said when I called her was, "Would you like to go up in my plane?" So
The very
Of
first
course,
thing. Of course,
yes.
why not? That starts
Yeah.
it off. So
when I, right away, she was enthused. So it was like a snowball, got bigger and bigger, When you're surrounded by people who are enthusiastic about what you're doing
Sure.
and share your interest, it's makes it that much more pleasant.
Were there
Yeah.
any parts that you didn't like about? Was there any frustrations that you had when you were making this?
We were trying to schedule going to Vermont, and it was in the winter time, and we wanted to go to a weather station in Vermont.
Okay.
And it turned out that I was in contact with the person in charge in Vermont, and it turned out that he wouldn't allow us to go, and we wouldn't have gone anyway because of the icing that was happening. Even though it wasn't happening in our area, up in Vermont, there was icing happening with all the planes.
Okay.
So that was one thing. So there were things that didn't get into the film,
Okay.
but there has to be, you have to just choose what is going to get into the film.
Right.
you
Well,
know.
that's the editor's
Yeah.
job. So anyway,
Yeah.
well, you've brought your film with us, so why don't we take a look at it
Okay.
and show the folks at home your work, which was truly beautiful. So if those in the
Thank you.
sound booth can do that for us, let's take a look at Conversations with a Pilot by Mary
Okay.
Ryan.
I am truly blessed, very blessed to be able to do it. That's the freedom to be able to do it and able to do it. Because I think everybody should have the opportunity, but we're not as all fortunate. You know, and even if somebody thought they wanted to, sometimes 99% of the people I ask to go flying will not go flying. And it's too bad because the feeling you get is absolutely fantastic. It's incredible. You cannot, I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like the last frontier that you really can do a lot of freedom and come and go, and it's a very good feeling. It's a natural high. Definitely a natural high. Yeah. I wanted to become a pilot when I was younger. I was lucky enough to work for Hanscom Air Force Base, and I was at the Draper Laboratories, and they had the test pilots, there. And it was really kind of exciting because we used to play tennis on the airstrip, and they weren't using them. It was a great job. I'm telling you, back then it was great. Now I understand they have a tennis court separate from the, the runway, but I've gone back once in a while, but I haven't been back in years. But it was, they did a lot of testing for top secret and that type of thing, which I never understood back then. But they used to pack me up and take me up in the helicopters. They'd pack me up and take me up in the different planes they had. And I'd say, sure, I'll go. And I remember showing up at work one day with a hat and a Casablanca look, and I'm ready to go now. I had a great, great time. I had a really good time. They taught me a lot. It was a whole different way of life, where you get into a plane and you go out to Maine, and it's almost like going shopping. And you're not really shopping, you're just going up picking supplies up, but you fly up to Maine and you fly back in that one day with the supplies. So I mean, it's a whole different way of life, where people don't realize that you can be someplace where you want to be and go and still come back in the same day, which was exciting for me. So I decided someday I was going to do that. When I started back, I was 43 years old. 43. I think it was 43. 43? 42. I'm sorry, 42 years old when I started back. And then I bought the plane. That was interesting. I bought the plane about a year later and actually finished my lessons on buying the plane. Well, financial, I did a lot of planning, because planes they're a definite interesting sport. And to do it correctly, some people go in as a partnership, some people go in as a club with a plane. I prefer to own whatever I have, because I'm the type of person that, like a lot of the girls say when we fly, the best way to describe a pilot like me and most women pilots is we're all type A personalities, and we don't let go of our yoke. There's no, so it's, I like making my own decisions, though, too, on my plane. So if there's something wrong with the plane, I don't have to call a partner and say, hey, we have a problem with this, this, and this. What do you want to do, and how do you want to handle it? I just say, do it. I don't question my mechanic because I say, okay, if it needs it, I'm not going to worry about it needing it later and I'm in the sky. So just do it. You know, and most pilots, they got to go out and discuss with the partner, they got to this, they got to that, and I just don't want to deal with that. Financially, it costs me a lot more to be like that, but to me, it's worth it. Definitely worth it. There's been a few times I've been a little shooken in the sky, schnookered, or not schnookered, shooken, shaken in the sky. It's been some interesting moments, but your training kicks in because you're told, fly the plane. No matter what happens in that sky, you just fly that plane. And you keep flying it and worry about it later. You do what you have to do to fly. And that stays in my head because of good training. I've had some pretty good training. And I've been very fortunate to have a lot of good training.
Back to Claire. Nobody's around.
I was exposed to it, very, very much exposed to it, and the experiences I had with the different pilots at Hanscom. And I was lucky enough as the years went by, you always kind of keep a lookout for flight aviation when you're interested in it. And I ran into a few good instructors, a few good people in my life that were, very much positive to continue it. So when you get involved with something, you run into a lot of good people, which is really good. And there's a lot of pluses and a lot of good people out there that'll help you learn.
So they were the people who we supported your training?
Yeah, a lot of good people. There is no pilots in my family that I know of. Not a pilot anywhere. I don't have anybody in the family background. Nothing. Never did a lot of flying when I was younger. My parents, well, when I was 15, I went to Europe. I was sent over with Clark University. That flying, which I loved. My father said he did give me the travel bug, yes, and I love to travel and see the world, but I wasn't as exposed to planes in that degree, I think, until I was 16 or 17. Then it was a whole different world when you actually go out and see. And I recommend people go to airports and take a look around and ask questions. And you'd be surprised how many pilots are more than happy to show a lot, give a lot, or do a lot just to get general aviation out there. I used to bring the kids over from the daycare and let them sit in the plane and try on the headsets and do different things like that. And then I've been asked by Boy Scouts and different other groups too, if they can come over, I can take them flying. Sure, I'll do it. I'll take them up flying. No, I had no influence of aviation until I was older, And it's kind of like it's in the blood, though. I will say that. When you're a pilot, you're a pilot. It's in the blood. And I think as you go through life and you experience things and you're exposed to things, the more you are exposed to, the more you realize there's out there to learn and do. And I think that's what people and children should do. No limitations. None. I would also like to learn to fly a multi-engine. That would be really exciting. I don't think I'd buy a multi-engine, but I think I'd learn how to fly a multi-engine. And I think if I had the opportunity to fly, even part-time with a multi-engine, I'd do it. I would definitely do it. The summer kind of bothers me because you get hot in that plane on the ground. and you need the altitude to cool the plane down. So sometimes it's tough to fly because of the heat, even with air conditioning, because they don't work like, air conditioning doesn't work like it does in a car. So you can't use it on takeoff and landing. And plus, by the time you get altitude, it's hot, and you don't want to be sitting on a tarmac hot. And I've been very careful of that with my grandchildren because it's too hot for them. So I don't always fly them in the summer. And if I do, I'm up and out before the altitude is cooled. I prefer the winter, the fall, and the spring. Yeah, I've had a few other people. My family was very surprised. My father was all excited because his dream was, if he were able to do it.
Well, first of all, just to see the cameras moving into that cockpit, which is about 2 feet, it had to have been very exciting for you to be going up in the plane and to be talking to, I mean, it's just like she gets in her car. I mean, I've always been fascinated by the small plane pilots. And what was it like for you?
Well, when Kathy just tells you to be quiet,
Okay.
because she's concentrating on everything, which
Right.
is good, and I had no trouble being quiet.
Okay.
Just looking out at everything was exciting for me.
Okay.
And as she became more comfortable once she got up in the air, got her altitude, then we would talk a little bit, and
Right.
she'd tell me, she would show me where certain places were.
Sure.
And she thoroughly enjoys doing this.
How fascinating was it to be flying over local landmarks that you know and be seeing them, as people say, the bird's eye view, but I mean, to fly even over, the high school fields or the highways or the reservoirs or great Tweeter Center, whatever. I mean, how incredible was that to see all of that?
Well, I work at the Tweeter Center,
Okay.
so it was exciting for me to see it from that perspective.
Sure.
And of course, the leaves were turning at that time, so it was absolutely beautiful.
Right. Now, how long, did you go up several times with her?
No, I actually only went up once
Okay.
with her, although she's offered me to go up with her again.
Right.
But
And for how long were you up?
I think it was an hour.
Okay.
Yes.
And were you able to get over to the coast? And what was the scope of where she took you to?
We did about 40 minutes out and around of Mansfield
Okay.
and towards Rhode Island.
Okay. Oh, how spectacular. Now, when you came back, what did it feel like to walk back out and get back on the tarmac and say, wow, I mean...
Well, it was I fly a lot,
Yeah.
because I travel a lot, but I've never been in the cockpit with someone else.
Sure.
And, I actually felt like I was flying the plane as we landed and we hit the tarmac.
You had that sense of the machinery around you and the operations.
Yes.
Is there a lot of flicking of the dials and levers and stuff? I mean, it looks like it's
Yes.
extremely complicated. That's all I can think of from
Right,
somebody
yeah.
not,
Well, I'm glad she didn't have to depend on me to fly it or get us down.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So I have deep admiration for anyone that has the courage to do that.
right. Now, did she share, because I didn't remember hearing in this section, when did she first start flying?
When she was 40 years old.
When she was 40,
It was
okay.
something she had always wanted to do.
Okay.
And so she geared her finances towards that.
Okay.
And even before she was done with her flying lessons, she bought the plane.
Okay.
Since then she bought a newer one.
All right. So now you have this, about how many hours of footage did you and Paul put together in terms of the story you were going to tell?
That's a good question.
I'm trying to think to cut it down to, it had to have been a couple of hours at least.
Yeah, it probably was at least 3 or 4 hours. You usually have to get an awful lot of footage.
Sure.
And to cut back and pull out what you think will be most interesting
Right.
for anyone to look at.
And one thing that impressed me in terms of looking at the mechanics of watching the film is that I would have thought it was a lot noisier, and I'm sure it was much noisier when you were in the plane, but it didn't seem like it's as noisy on film as it does sound when you're on an airstrip or something. And I don't know if it was because of the camera or it's just that it's a nice heavy plane, or it just seemed like I would have been like this the whole time, and it didn't seem to be a problem at all.
It's very noisy. when you're sitting in the plane, it really is noisy.
Okay, but the
Yes.
camera didn't seem to pick that up, which was good.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yes.
If you were, in a dream world, you were to make a full-length feature on this subject matter, what kinds of things would you like to incorporate? Additional footage.
Okay. Perhaps more of the 99s,
Okay.
the women
Sure.
pilots, in their stories, and
Yeah.
you know how they came to want to be a pilot. You know.
See, that would be a
think-
great idea for a film.
Yes.
You can sell it to, I'm trying to think who would do a film like that. Bruckheimer would make it a blow-up film. But anyway, I think that would be a great idea.
Yes. And just to ask them what their challenges are today as
Sure.
they do it, and it doesn't matter the age. There's some in that group. I think there's somebody in their 90s.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
So it really doesn't matter. So
Well, and I guess the bottom line is that it's still a very safe hobby and mode of travel. I mean, you hear about the accidents and the crashes, but they're rare. I mean, so rare that you hear about one or the other as it, in the course of a calendar year. So that, and we know how many small planes there are out there and how many pilots, and so it really is, a safe hobby that a lot of knowledgeable people, you have to be very knowledgeable, but share in it, so it's a very respectful kind of thing. You're not, it's not as much, my only comparison I can think of is the boating hobby, where boat owners, just boat around reservoirs, and sometimes some of them know the rules of the road and some of them don't, because it's a lot less regulated, and with planes, it is a different element, but still it's much more, I think it's a very safe element, and the people, they love it. How can you not love it?
right. One of the things that Kathy said, an experienced pilot told her, the most important thing that you have to think about is weather, and respect it, and intuition.
That's true. That's a good point. And you do have to, because there is something out there larger than all of us.
Exactly.
And no matter what, as you were saying, you can't fly in difficult storms. And as she was saying, the seasons that she likes are everything but the summer, because it gets too hot.
Right.
And I would think that the summer would be the easiest because it's clear and it's sunny and you have good visibility. But then there's that heat, and if you can be in that little cockpit with the sun beating down on you, you can't just ask for the flight attendant to bring you a Diet Coke.
Exactly.
So,
and when she's traveling down to Florida to visit, she has to stop along the way.
Oh, sure.
And refresh, and so you have to keep on, even no matter how smooth it looks, like when you're driving yourself, just take the time to stop.
well, and the fatigue, that's the problem.
Yes.
It is a strain because you're alert all the time.
And she's the only one.
Right. Oh, and you don't have, you can't just, switch seats with me and drive kind of thing like if you have an RV. So, okay, so we have another film festival coming up this year. Any ideas on what you're going to be submitting? Oh, I think I hear our music. That means our time is up. So we'll have to say that for our next visit.
Okay.
But thank you very much, Mary, for joining us. It was a delight to talk to you about Conversations with a Pilot. I'm Lauren Swartz, your host for the Easton Film Festival, Filmmakers of Easton. Thank you for tuning in. We are here every week at 7 o'clock on Channel 9. Please visit our website, sponsored by ClearPoint Communications. And thank you so much to Northeastern Savings Bank, who sponsors us. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. So that was good. You didn't give me